We are here to talk about Claris FileMaker 19. Okay, so just to give you a brief overview of what our agenda is for tonight, we've got a quick introduction. We're going to look at and just kind of talk through those features for FileMaker 19. We do have a couple of those key features that we're going to demo. And then we're going to follow up with some additional information, and then hopefully have some time for Q&A here at the end. All right. So just to start off, before we move forward, we're just going to take a step back just so that everybody kind of understands, where Claris is coming from, especially with this release, is that they've always been about helping the problem solvers solve problems. And as people are getting more used to these modern custom apps that they can, download from an app store or buy somewhere, our apps that we build with FileMaker need to keep up with it. And so that's what Claris has endeavored to do, is to build this platform that we already know and just keep building on top of it. So whether we're, the skilled developer or someone that just needs an app to work in our business, we have the tools that we need. We have the community support when needed, or there's also partners that are available if we need to do anything there. And so what that looks like for them is that we have this idea of providing the tools to create the best modern app experiences. And that vision includes making powerful technologies available to everyone. And those powerful technologies mean things like cloud, AI, or artificial intelligence. And that, again, those are the technologies that people have gotten used to and want to see, in their apps that they're building. And, Claris also has a goal of making sure that this cloud smart technology is available, but it's not just available when we're in the cloud, but it's on every device, whether we're on premise or offline. We have those tools available to us. And it all comes down to this low code technology that's accessible to all users, but then it can be extended by those of us that would be, considered like a pro developer or have, programming experience, where we can get into the, the nuts and bolts of things. And so just, kind of comes all down to just powerful technologies available to everyone. All right. So that brings us back now to Claris FileMaker 19, which is the next chapter of Claris FileMaker. With this release, they are moving away from the annual release. It seems like we get to do this every, end of May, beginning of June, get together to find out what the new features are in the next version of FileMaker. Well, they're going to be moving away from that model. And so Claris 19 or FileMaker 19 is that first open platform. And what that means is that as features become ready, as updates become ready, there's functionality they want to get into our hands faster, they are going to go ahead and release that. We won't have to wait an entire year for that feature to come along. We'll be able to you begin using it as soon as they deem that it's ready to use. And as we kind of hinted at, this release, we've got the ability to extend our development with AI, JavaScript, and then even build some shareable packaged add-ons to build our custom apps, and improve our workplaces even faster. So the first thing we want to look at is with just JavaScript and FileMaker scripts, and this is one of the things that's probably had generated the most enthusiasm within the developer community, is just the advancements that have been made integrating JavaScript right into our FileMaker solutions. So what can that look like? Well, it's possible that it could look like this, where you see there's a few screenshots here of what we're going to be able to build. So as you can see, JavaScript integration is obviously a game changer when it comes to taking the solutions that we build and taking them to the next level beyond what the native FileMaker tools and design and functionality allow us to do. And what's cool about this is that we're able, with FileMaker 19 then, is to create these powerful, modern looking apps using the available JavaScript libraries that are out there, or we can create our own JavaScript code if we want to, and do all of this inside a web viewer within FileMaker. So we're directly embedding things here. As you can see, there's a calendar, there's a Gantt chart. You do maps, animated graphics, data visualization, and more. And as I said, we have a large FileMaker community. Well, there's even a larger JavaScript community of developers. They're constantly updating, a vast collection of JavaScript libraries like Vue.js and then D3.js, or a couple. And these are open source or open sources that have these features and functionalities that we can then grab. And all of this is now unlocked for us. And it's at our fingertips as tools to use within our FileMaker solutions without ever having to leave the platform. And it's there's been all the testing, everything in the background to meet the new standards of visualization and capabilities that the customers have always wanted, but still have that expectation of a reliable app that we've come to know and love from FileMaker. So what does that look like from a development standpoint? Well, it starts with a script step, which you can see a kind of a screenshot here. And I know what you're saying is that you could do JavaScript in FileMaker solutions prior to this version of FileMaker, and you would be correct. But with FileMaker 19, we have a more elegant method of integration, which is going to save us time in development. And it starts with the script step. You'll see that it, going everywhere again. It's supported on FileMaker Pro, FileMaker Go, and WebDirect. And it, works in the web viewer. But the beauty of it is that now FileMaker scripts and the data in the web viewer can communicate directly and pass information between them with this new script step. And then there's a companion function that goes along with it. And you can see here on the slide, there's a couple things just to be aware of as you're using it, is that while the JavaScript function is being performed, users can't cancel the operation or perform any other actions. You can use the go to object script step to make sure you're focused on that web viewer. But then you also need to make sure you allow time for the JavaScript function to be performed, because if it's run and the page isn't done loading, then you're going to generate an error. So you just need to be aware of that. And then the script step, or that was the script step, the function that we have is actually a function that is run inside of the JavaScript. And then what that allows us to do is then be able to call a FileMaker script based on the result of our JavaScript that we've written that's running in the web viewer. And just like with everything within FileMaker, context is key. So you have to worry about if you don't want to change a record, and then you might get a different result while that JavaScript is running. And so that's where you can use some optional parameters to pass information back to make sure you're updating the correct record and things like that. And it does not wait for the FileMaker script to finish, and the script won't return a value to the function. So it's like a one-directional thing where you kick off something in the web viewer with the JavaScript, get the result, and pull that over into FileMaker, but you don't necessarily push it back right away. So there's no handshaking there. Now, probably what you're asking yourself is, that sounds great, but I'm not a JavaScript developer. I don't have time to learn a new language. I would agree with you, because when I was in school, I learned those cutting-edge languages of BASIC and Fortran. So JavaScript is definitely new to me. But what is coming soon is these JavaScript add-ons that Claris is going to make available, because again, it goes back to their vision of having these powerful technologies available to everyone. And so with these add-on components, we'll be able to drag and drop new features right into our solutions, like Kanban boards, photo galleries, barcode generators, and more, without having to know all of the intricacies of JavaScript. Who hasn't wanted to drag a calendar right into their solution and have it populate with the information from our database? So now with these JavaScript add-ons, we're going to be able to do that. That said, snapping together apps faster than ever with the add-on components doesn't begin and end with the JavaScript. There's a new script new script step that's currently in the preview software mode right now, and that is to save a copy as an add-on package. And what that does is it allows us to create reusable modular add-on components of our own that are based on FileMaker stuff that we've already built. Because Claris has dedicated a lot of time, and resources toward XML representation of the platform, and then using this as a foundation for moving solutions forward, and also with this potential for modular components. If you're familiar with some of the starter solutions where they had the the add-on tables a few years back, I forget what version of FileMaker they introduced that, but this idea of having that add-on table, this is just like kind of the next evolution of that, is where you now, instead of just a table with a few fields and things, now you've got something that has a few more features with it that you're able to add these components on to an existing solution. So what does that look like? Well, I guess we see it right there with the script step, where it's just save a copy as an add-on package, and then there's a few parameters, and we get to play around with that. Okay, so that's the JavaScript and some of the add-on packages. The next step is looking at making our apps smarter. These are not strictly limited to iOS, but they're certainly more geared towards iOS, so we'll kind of focus on that. And it's all about integrating those powerful modern tools to get the right information at the right time to work at making our apps smarter. And this goes right along with what Apple has done with some advanced technologies for AI. And that's with Core ML, which is Apple's Core machine learning framework that's available on both iOS and Mac OS. Unfortunately, because it is Apple-based, the Windows users are out of luck until you convince your boss that you need to switch over to a Mac. But what that does is that you now can set your machines up to start teaching themselves and then make accurate predictions on things. So what are some of the things that you can do? There's a machine learning module for sentiment analysis. So a system can reveal the tone of a message, and like on a company's website or something like that. Or maybe you want to see who the artist is of a photograph or a painting that you've come across. In the scenario that you see up above there is that you've been handed a part that you're not familiar with, so you leverage the Core ML to identify the part and determine whether that part is in stock or not. So after taking a photo of the part, you get a list of potential matches along with the percentage of confidence that you can then use to make a decision. As you can see, based on the format, it's it's in JSON format, so it's important to brush up on your JSON skills as well, so you can get the results back and start parsing all of those things out. So what that looks like under the hood is it starts with 4 things to begin, and that is you need the Core ML file. You need a container field to house the Core ML. And then much like with JavaScript, there's now a new script step and a new function that we can use. So there's existing models that are available both through Apple's website as well as some third-party models that have been built using the proper formatting and everything. Or you could build your own if you can't find what you're looking for. So it kind of starts with that Core ML file. There's a new script step, which you see a screenshot of here, which is configure machine learning model. That's where you have to load that Core ML model into the system. And again, this is supported on FileMaker Go and then FileMaker Pro for the Mac. And then the new function, which is compute model, where you provide the Core ML model with its input and the formats for the output, so you can perform the analysis once you get the results back. Another thing that is happening on iOS to make our apps smarter is that we can now unlock the potential with Siri Shortcuts. And of course, who doesn't like to be able to tell the device to do something and then have it do it, right? So now you can tell it to search for records, update inventory, or start a process. And there's kind of two things that go hand in hand. You'll see on the left side of the screen a screenshot of, in the script workspace, whether through the scripts menu or by right-clicking on a script, you can now choose to enable a script for Siri Shortcuts, or what they call a shortcut donation. Okay. And then over on the right-hand side is a screenshot of the actual setup of the shortcut in FileMaker Go. Or on the iOS device, FileMaker Go will now be available to them in the list of scripts that have been donated. And then you can create a larger shortcut experience by choosing the scripts that are available. So a lot of people are having trouble fat fingering stuff. Now you have the options to be able to go in and set up shortcuts, which is kind of a cool thing. Another thing that's going to help us make our app smarter is the ability to read NFC tags. If you're not familiar with the TLA, or the three-letter acronym, NFC tags are near field communication tags. And it's a lot like an RFID, if you're familiar with those, which I think that's been around with FileMaker for a couple versions as well. It's the same concept, but it's a lot closer. It's where RFIDs can be used from a distance. NFC readers typically have a maximum range of about 4 inches, so it's very up close and personal. So it's not something you would necessarily use for inventory tracking of pallets, but you could certainly use to track individual items or get information back quickly. And so there's a new script step now that we can set up to enable for the NFC readings to get information about a tag merchandise, navigate to the item in the database, do a checkout at a kiosk, things like that. And here's some details about that script step, where you can start or stop the scanning. Again, obviously it's supported in FileMaker Go because it's intended to be something that is mobile. You can set it up to do continuous reading, so it can read in a batch of things, and then you can decide how long that reading and stuff is going to continue. The final highlight, at least that we're going to focus on here this evening, is the ability to create in FileMaker Cloud. And this kind of goes all along with the expectations that people have based on some of the more modern apps and things that they use in business, where you're able to create in the cloud very simply and quickly and get right to work with your data, instead of having to take time to create the app on the desktop and then get it uploaded to the cloud and make sure you have all of the security settings and everything set correctly. And so that's where, with FileMaker 19, they're taking another step towards this idea of zero configuration deployment. That's where you create a new file. You can specify the location so it goes directly to the FileMaker Cloud environment of your choice. And it cuts down on the number of clicks it would take to bring this app to the cloud, if that's where your users are going to be working with it. And the other nice thing is it will automatically enable the WebDirect, extended privilege set, so that I don't know how many times I've had to go back into a solution and re-enable WebDirect, even though I knew that's where it was going to be used, just because I forgot. So this kind of takes care of that for us, which is nice. And then obviously there's miscellaneous improvements, enhancements, across the platform that have been made. Here's a quick list of some of those. Probably the one that I'm most excited about in this list is just card support for FileMaker WebDirect. I think card windows have been around since version 16 or 17, and we have really adapted them as part of our design process because of the design patterns you're able to create using card windows, but you weren't able to take that same functionality over to any solutions that were being used on FileMaker WebDirect, where now you're able to do that. And along with that, some of the adjust window, move and resize window, and new window script steps are now supported on FileMaker WebDirect when they're interacting with the card window that you've created. You can now navigate to layouts easier because you can now navigate to layout by name. There's now a page count symbol that can be added to layouts. Before, if you wanted to get a total number of pages on a report, you had to write a script that went to the last page and saved it in a variable and go back. Now it's just a symbol that you can drop onto your report. You can also configure it to open a file when FileMaker Pro launches. So if your users only need to open one file and they're constantly forgetting where the server is, you can set it up to make sure that it opens that file, automatically. As you can see, there's in-product links to the Claris marketplace. And then there's a few things that are specific to Mac OS. So if you are a Mac user, these could be very exciting options where you've got the support for dark mode, the drag and drop installer, and then the image support for the HEIF, which I had to look up, and stands for the High Efficiency Image Format. So if you have those moving pictures that you take on your iPhone, which we used to call videos, you can now support those on the Mac OS, which is kind of nice. All right, so that takes care of that. So let me go ahead and I'm going to stop sharing the presentation, and we're going to go ahead and dive into a little bit of demo. And we'll just go ahead and take things in the order that we did them. You guys all able to see the FileMaker okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so the how, just again briefly, new script step, a new function, which again, it's a new function that's going to be run in the web viewer, not necessarily in the calculation engine within FileMaker, so that we can get those results back from the web viewer. And here's a quick example of what that may look like. Is that you have your JavaScript code is written over here, and you can see an example. Here's where they've integrated that function so that we can get some results back from our JavaScript. And then we've set up a web viewer, and then we've also got some fields over here. So if I go ahead into the web viewer, that's allowing me to interact with this data. I go ahead and put in my name, give it a rating of about there, and come down here and pick my favorite color. And then I go ahead and submit that. You will see that it actually updated the fields over here that were with this record. Now, if I were to come over here and make changes to the data, I'm actually now able to push those changes back over to the web viewer. So a very seamless integration between, the way we're able to use things with, the JavaScript. All right, so what would that look like potentially in, our solution? So here is an example of a chart that was created for an organization that accepts donations. Obviously, donations come in different sizes. They also have different sources, and this is a chart that's kind of mapping out the distribution of those different types. So as I'm interacting with the web viewer at the top, you'll see that as I hover over the large size donation, I can see, okay, what percentage of those has gone out into, from the different sources. Again, hover over the medium, I can see that breakdown very quickly. Small, very nice. If I come over here and say, okay, I want to look at my sources for the auctions, if I click that, I be able to update the information that's shown down here in the portal. Same thing, where I can see, my recurring donations, what does that breakdown look like for the actual values? So I'm able to drill into that information, again, by interacting between what we see. And now if I were to come down here and make a large recurring donation, at that record, you'll see the chart automatically updated to now show that large recurring donation that has come in, and able to visualize the data and have it mean a little bit more. So that's just one of the things that we're now able to do with this idea of this JavaScript integration in our solutions. So pretty cool stuff, I think. All right, so go on to the machine learning. Everybody can see that okay?
Yes.
All right, perfect. All right, so just a quick refresh on the how. Again, a new script step that's going to load that core ML model into FileMaker for us. And then there's a new function that we then use to pass the input to the model and then configure how we're going to get our parameters or the results back out of it. So we'll go ahead and do a couple simple trials. Here's a few of the core ML models that are available through the Apple website that have already been set up for us. Again, you have one of the first steps is to go ahead and load that core ML model, and then we want to run the model to get our output. And you can see here, it's looking at this picture and it's trying to classify that picture for us. And so you see the classification, and then there's a level of confidence that it has that it's given us the right result. So there's one at 55%, one at 42. And then as we scroll down here, you can see it gets very quickly into the very minute, e to the -5 levels of confidence. So that's probably not the ideal. So what you're able to do as part of setting up the function when it runs is to go ahead and you can say, okay, don't show me anything that's less than 40%. So I'm going to go ahead and run the model, and now it's just going to ignore everything that's less than 40% confidence, or whatever, obviously whatever level makes the most sense. Another one of the core ML models that's available there is something that will determine the person's age based on a picture. So if we go ahead and load that, and we go ahead and run our model, you can see here it says that there's a 92% confidence that this is a 25 to 32-year-old person. Okay. Now you could put in and say, I want to make sure I want to have 100% confidence before I accept the value. And of course, when we run that, no result is returned. And so that's where there's another option within that function that allows us to make sure that at least one result is returned. So if I were to turn that on, run the model again, it's going to go ahead and return back that one result for me. All right. So there's some quick examples, but let's go ahead and dive into the demo here real quick. So there's a couple things that we're going to look at here. The one is for predicting hours. And this is a regression, which is using a set of variables. And the model estimates the amount of billable hours for the current customer. All right. So I say, okay, I want to predict how many hours I could possibly bill this customer based on the size of their property. So it's going to ask for some information here. We'll go ahead and upsize the property, leave everything else the same, turn that off, and we run the prediction. And it's reminding me that I need to load the model first. And it's, run the prediction and says, okay, about 410 billable hours for this year for this client based on that makeup. Now, if I were to go in and want to run it again and say they've asked for eco-friendly products, I can, make that adjustment, run the prediction again, and it's actually dropped it down to 404 hours. So that's, one of the things that this idea of this core ML can do for you. If we look over here at the reviews, we find out that there was 2 positives and 1 negative. Now, if we were to just go ahead and get rid of that there and say, their service was awesome. And it's again asking me to make sure it's loaded. And now because of the text that it was using, which is that sentiment analysis, it was able to determine whether the comment that was made was positive or negative and update the icon that was displayed accordingly. So a couple nice quick examples of where we can, take things as we introduce this idea of the core ML and add AI to our apps. Okay. So, like I said, we're going to concentrate on those two primary things, just given the time that we have. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and switch back to my slides. Okay, everybody back to seeing the slides? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So now is some time for some additional information. With the change to FileMaker or Claris, formerly FileMaker, formerly Claris, we have some rebranding within the product. The Claris ID and the Claris Customer Console have replaced their FileMaker counterparts, even though the functionality is completely the same. With that, also, you'll notice that FileMaker Pro Advanced is no longer a thing. It's simply FileMaker Pro, but all the features are there. If you want to be able to use the advanced tools that were in FileMaker Pro Advanced, you have to go into Preferences, check the box, and those tools will be there. They just simply shortened the name and took the advanced off. The one thing to note about that, though, is that with the Get Application version, if you have any scripts that are relying and make determinations on whether it's Pro or Pro Advanced, Get Application version obviously is only going to return FileMaker Pro, so you may need to double check scripts if you have anything that's in there specific to that. And then the last change is just, instead of now talking about the FileMaker platform, we are simply talking about Claris FileMaker with server and cloud and Go and Pro and WebDirect all coming together. So the nice thing that they've done for us is that the licensing and pricing remains the same with this version. So the pricing and margins that partners had for FileMaker 18 continues now with the same pricing for FileMaker 19. So it's nice that there's no changes there. As we get into the operating systems, these are the ones that are tested and certified, at least. I think it's the versions that we probably expected based on previous versions, where it's supporting the most current and the next most current versions of Mac OS, which in this case would be Catalina and Mojave, and then Windows 10 and Windows 8.1 on the Windows side of things. Server, again, Catalina and Mojave, and then Windows Server 2019 or Windows Server 2016 are your preferred operating systems. FileMaker Go requires 13.2 on both iOS or iPad OS. And then for FileMaker Cloud, it's the expected browsers where you've got Safari, Microsoft Edge, new Microsoft Edge, which I think they should have just called Microsoft Edgier, but they missed the opportunity on that one. And then Chrome. And then the mobile browsers are Safari on iOS and iPad OS, and Chrome for Android. If you need any more information specific to maybe your system, obviously the FileMaker 19 tech specs will have more details about that. Moving on, typically we only go over deprecation notices with a new version of FileMaker. I think this is the first time in a while where we actually get to talk about a removal of something. So if you do anything with runtimes, unfortunately, that functionality has been removed with FileMaker 19. As you can see, it's been deprecated since FileMaker 14, but because it hasn't really been updated since then, when it was moved to the deprecation list, that they've started to experience issues with runtimes with the newer operating systems. And as a result, they don't meet the quality standards that FileMaker has. So they finally decided it was time to now remove it from the Claris FileMaker. So now there is another deprecation notice, but that means it's still there. It's just we've been put on notice, and that is the peer-to-peer network sharing with FileMaker Pro. I mean, this feature is still used for FileMaker Go development, which is why it's still, in the platform. And you have, connections will remain at 5. So if you're testing and doing things in-house, you'll still be able to, share from, copy of FileMaker Pro without having to go to server to test your iOS app. And the support policy is also going to be undergoing some changes. I think FileMaker has actually started, or excuse me, Claris has started to make this information known throughout the community over the last couple months. But they're now going to be supporting products 2 years from the initial release. As they've ramped up the release cycles, where it's not just going to be one a year. It will start, if there's a version that comes out, the clock starts 2 years from that date. And this is primarily to free up resources they could have supporting older versions of FileMaker and actually have them now building the newer, features and keeping everything up to date as new technologies emerge, much like what they've done with, AI and, the JavaScript integration and things like that. So as far as product release eligibility, as long as you have an active subscription, whether that's annual volume license or a maintenance agreement, if there's a new version, you'll get the information that your license keys are going to work with that version. Now, security updates are a little bit different, that if you have an active subscription or one that has expired in the last 12 months, you will be eligible for anything that's considered a security, hot fix or patch or whatever terminology you want to use. So even if your maintenance agreement has expired within that 12-month window, you'll still get the security updates, but you won't get a new product release that may have a new feature or refinement of an existing feature or things like that. So just important stuff to be aware of. And I guess with that, we'll do a little bit of Q&A specific to FileMaker 19 before we open it up to just general FileMaker questions. And the only request that I make is just ask questions that I can answer. So.
So I have a question about the ML.
Yes.
Because seeing the spark plug, of course, since I'm in plumbing, that made me want to sit here and make a model on how to identify stems and cartridges and other things, other plumbing parts. But is there like, can you take an existing database of photos and then is that how you create the ML model?
I have to. Did you not listen, Kim? You're supposed to ask questions that I can.
I'm sorry.
I know that because I did some looking on the Apple website that had some of their core ML models, that there were the vast majority of them had something to do with pictures. So I don't know that you would necessarily need to start from scratch with your own model, but I think as you showed it pictures and started classifying parts, I think that would, obviously, help. And there may be, a core ML model that's available that's more specific to industry as opposed to categorizing landscapes or forest or trees or whatever. Right. But again, that's just me kind of talking and surmising as what's available.
I just think that would be really useful for our sales reps in the field. Then they could identify parts, as once they're allowed back in. But eventually, because I have a few FileMaker Go apps, and I was like, oh, that would be great if they could take a picture of what it is, and then it could come up and bring up the part number.
Okay, this died.
So are you still doing the thingy?
Yes, I am.
Okay, well.
Okay. Any other questions? We've had a few comments between Erica and Paul and Greg. If you guys want to follow along with that, there might be some. Looks like Greg has already been working with that, which is cool. Any other questions? Okay, seeing no questions, we'll go ahead and move. I mean, obviously, this isn't your only time. We can always circle back. So there's the final official slide from Claris. So now we'll get into one more thing. So I don't know if anybody has a general FileMaker question or anything that they want to ask the group. Now is your chance. You can either chat it to us or just let me know and I can unmute. I guess everybody is
overwhelmed.
Okay. And Paul and I have already exchanged our jokes earlier today. So those of you that joined late, missed those. So I guess give me 1 second there, Beth.
Thank you.
Yep,
I just wanted to stay quiet while you were presenting so that none of my household noise interfered. You never know what you're going to hear around here.
Yep, not a problem. All right. Nobody else has one more thing? No more questions? Like I said, I'll answer what I can as far as FileMaker 19 goes. And definitely some exciting stuff between I know my own personal goal is to update my roller coaster app to recognize roller coasters by the picture that I take of them. So we'll see how that goes.
That'll be next month's meeting presentation. You'll show it in action.
Yeah, we'll see. Depends.
And won't that go along with what Kim was asking then too?
Yeah.
About her file of photos.
Yeah, I mean, I think between the core ML and the JavaScript, there's a lot of fodder for future FMburgh meetings.
Mm-hmm.
All right, give me 1 second here, Erica.
Kim, are you going to try and do that?
Well, I'm gonna wait until Todd does it, then I'm gonna do it.
Okay. Can you let us know how it works?
Oh yeah, I mean that's ambitious of me to try that, but that would be really good. We have a good database of photos, of parts, part photos. So that's why I was wondering.
I have a question about the Siri shortcuts.
Yes.
So I'm assuming that would be while people were in the database already logged in. So not like to open the database, but as they were already.
Honestly, I'm not, because
I'm pretty sure, actually, I don't mean to interrupt you, Todd, but I'm pretty sure that it would open the database. So you could say, hey, you know who, I'm not going to say it because my phone will take over, but excuse me. But like, I have one set up that if I say, hey, you know who, pay the lawn guy, it opens PayPal on my phone and starts a send to a particular person. So all I have to do is, confirm the amount and hit send. So instead of me having to open the app, hit send, find the person, type it all in, it saves me all those steps. So I have not played with this with 19 yet, but when I heard that that was an option, my assumption is you could say something like, hey, you know who, open the customer database and tell me if Todd owes any money. And it will run that query for you and give you a response. So that's my assumption of how it's going to work.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would agree with
next week because I'm doing this presentation for the Philly user group next week.
Okay.
We're going to find out, and then we'll know.
Yeah, and that would be my assumption, because I know there is an open database or open file script step.
Mm-hmm.
So I would think as long as you could, if you can do that, then it should be able to open the file as well.
It's probably going to be very specific. You're going to have basic commands like open and run, that kind of thing. And you're probably going to need a file name, and you're probably going to need a script name. And you may or may not need some type of credentials.
Okay. Oh, and it looks like Laura has already found the solution for us.
All right.
In our chat.
Yeah.
So there's a link. So thank you, Laura, for bailing us out.
Yes, thank you, Laura. I'm looking at the link, Laura. Thank you. No problem.
Yeah, there it is.
All right.
Auto login and credentials. Okay.
All right. Any other questions or one more thing?
So this is finally the version where we have to become programmers to go to the next step as FileMaker developers. But it's pretty exciting.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah. I have a one more thing or a one earlier thing. I was having trouble attending this meeting on my iPad. And one thing I've noticed doing things on my laptop and my iPad is that the screen layout on the iPad is often clumsy. It's usually usable. And that's what happened here. And the display place, the slide space, the place where the one more thing was all of your faces were arrayed in a very oversized grid. I could only see about 4 of you. And then the one more thing overlaid them all. Otherwise, it seemed to be sort of working. I now went and got my laptop and have got it running on the laptop, and it works. The layout's fine. So I think this just is not designed for an oldish iPad's layout.
Okay, well, we will certainly put that into consideration as we continue to evaluate the technology that allows us to meet remotely. So,
but this is great. This is great. I'm glad to be here.
Okay. You're good. Okay, anybody else? I don't want to cut anybody off. We'll keep the conversation
I
going.
also have a one more thing, just because I have not been in touch in a long time. Do we have a DevCon this fall?
Yes and no, and it's actually part of one of the announcement slides.
Okay. I will suspend till the announcement.
And technically, that's 2 more things, Jill, but that's okay.
To the board.
All right. Anybody else with 1, 2, or 3 more things?
Don't point at me.
I just like this.
I have one question.
Okay.
Who needs a haircut?
Sure.
No.
Many
Not
other
Todd.
things.
Nope. Yeah, see, I've got the hairstyle where I can do my own with the clippers. So, Okay, moving on then. Do a little bit of wrap up here. Just because I couldn't resist, since this was the newest news I had to report, I had to put in that, in case you fell asleep over the last 45 minutes, FileMaker 19 has been released, where we can extend the platform with AI and JavaScript, and creating cloud and card support, plus many other things. One of the announcements, we actually made this, was just before our May meeting, just so that you guys have this, is that Claris has updated the pricing for Claris Connect. The Essentials and the Standard plans remain the same, but what they've done is they've added FileMaker Plus, and what that is for users with an existing valid FileMaker license or subscription, which gives you the unlimited flows and the number of API calls of the standard plan, but at a cost that's half of what the Essentials plan is. So it's quite a cost savings to allow, Claris FileMaker users the ability to also use Claris Connect to connect to those things that are outside of, FileMaker. And then there's also a developer plan now as well, which is intended for testing purposes only, obviously based on the name. And what that does is, again, it's the same features of the standard plan as far as the number of unlimited flows and then being able to set those up, but you're limited to 500 API calls per month. Again, because obviously it is just for testing. And you can visit claris.com/pricing for the complete details. Final announcement, as we've hinted at this the last couple meetings, I think, is that we're doing what we're calling a Workplace Innovation Jumpstart, which is a workshop that's going to happen here later this month. And the goal is that you'll learn a bunch of FileMaker skills to build a custom app over the course of 4 days from concept to functioning app. Unlike the other workshops that we've done, this will be online instruction from Cross IT and Profile developers. And it's set up, it'll be Tuesday, June 22nd through Friday the 26th. And it'll run in the 9 to 12 in the morning. There'll be some hands-on stuff during those times, as well as some homework assignments. So I think probably all of you that are gathered here probably have enough FileMaker instruction and knowledge and everything, but still wanted to make the announcement. And then you can visit the link there for more details on the workshop. Important dates. The next meeting is scheduled for August 5th. Hopefully we'll be able to gather in person. I think we're going to continue to offer things online, even if we do meet in person. But hopefully, we can start getting back together sooner rather than later. But the date is a little bit flexible because of the Claris Engage conference is currently scheduled for that same week there at the beginning of August. And what has happened is that because of COVID and everything that's been going on, is that it has also moved to an all virtual event. So don't know a whole lot of the details yet because that's still being formulated because it's constantly changing target that Claris has to try to meet. But if possible, what we're hoping to do is some type of FMburgh watch party during one of the keynote presentations. So again, don't have the details yet, but we'll try to get those to you as quickly as we can to hopefully gather probably one of those mornings that first week of August to check out the keynote from Claris Engage. So hopefully that answers your question, Jill, regarding the conference. And the last thing just to be aware of is that on June 20th, the Blues Brothers celebrates its 40th anniversary. So if you want to pull out the Blu-ray or DVD or even VHS tape and watch it, that would be the perfect time to do it. So, and I think that's all we have other than obviously, our next topic is to be determined. Just because we don't know whether it'll be that watch party or if we'll be talking about something in FileMaker 19. Okay, and I guess with that, that's all we have. Hopefully, we'll be able to get the meeting survey out here within the next couple of days just to get some feedback on how all the technology it worked and everybody was able to participate in the meeting and all that. There are a few links of information that people have shared in the chat, so I will be sure to grab all of that and then try to include that in the wrap-up email so you'll have those references. So thanks to Laura and Greg on some of our Siri shortcuts and core ML model questions and things like that. So certainly appreciate those things. Does anybody have anything else before we officially call the meeting to a close?
Happy 4th of July, everybody.
Oh, that's right. Yes. Happy 4th of July. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Certainly appreciate all of our long distance guests that have joined us remotely. So feel free to come back to FMburgh anytime. So we meet on the first Wednesdays of the month, except for July and January. So happy to have you join us.
Thanks for your presentation, Todd.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes,
Hey,
thanks.
thanks.
Good to see everyone.
Yep.
Good to see everybody too.
Good to see you, Jill. Good to see everyone.
Yep. Good to see everybody. All right. Good night, all.
Like I said, good luck with your presentation, Beth.
Oh, thanks, Todd. It's like I couldn't wait to watch yours tonight. It's like I got to study. We're going to break it up a little bit. I think Colin's going to do most of like your initial intro part, and then Mike Ahern, I don't remember if you met him. He came to the one Vegas DevCon.
Okay.
He's going to do the JavaScript demo, and I'm going to do the core ML demo.
Okay.
So we just talked about it this morning. So I just got my demo. I haven't learned anything yet, but
Okay.
so thanks for the preview.
Well, you're very welcome. I hope it was helpful.
It was.
If you want to, you can use my jokes too, if you feel that they're worthy. So.
Oh, thanks. All right. Well, I'm out of here. Take care.
All right.
All
Good
right,
night,
very
all.
good.
All right. Good
Take
night.
All
care.
right. We'll see you, Philip. Thanks again for joining.
Bye, everybody.
See you, Beth. See you, Kim.